Hello, folks. Welcome back to BVG. I think this is episode 6. Well, there's a little number of... There you go. There. Now you all know what episode it is. Looking at the title.
Yeah.
And joining me today, of course, is Scott.
Hello.
We got a fun one today. We got something that kind of is nostalgia-ridden, and it's something that's relatable and hotly debated and continues to be a thing even to this very day, and that is the console war.
Yes, console wars. Ones that I feel like does that console war predate us even?
It can be argued. Actually, I don't know.
Like, I know that there are obviously consoles older than us, and I guess as companies they would vie for each other's business, but I'm just kind of like, was it really console wars, or did we grow up in the console wars?
I think we grew up, definitely. We were like the generation that the people marketing these consoles were like, those are the kids we want to sling this stuff to. Though, like,
That's
I know
true.
it's weird because, like, I read a book a few years ago called Console Wars, and I know the first real heated fight was between Sega and Nintendo. Like, they were the first real rivals to go, let's go.
They're slashing each other's tires, egging each other's houses.
Genuine, like, legit, like, there was some mudslinging. Like, these guys actually went at it. The book I read was written from, I believe, the American president of Sega. His name escapes me, but it was a very good read, and there's some pretty good drama, and it's a story of, like, the underdog facing down Nintendo, because Nintendo, long story short, I'm sure there's some hardcore gamers who might be listening to this and say that I'm wrong, but I do remember some broad stroke things of how, like, the gaming market crashed because Atari and third party developers just dumping all this garbage, and then they thought, like, well, that's gaming, that was a trend, we're done. And then Nintendo was the one who brought it back from the crypt and was like, we can make quality games and we'll make sure it never gets this bad ever again with, like, Atari. And they had such a vice grip on games. Like, they took such a massive percentage of when developers would go to Nintendo, like the games that weren't made in-house by Nintendo, they'd be like, sure, you can put these games on our console, but we're getting a good slice because you have nowhere else to go. And Sega apparently was one of the companies to rival that and say, like, we're going to give you a run for your money. And there was a moment where they almost knocked him out. Like, there were some actual pretty solid victories where Sega was, they beat Nintendo, but then, like, it came crashing down because Sega had a lot of infighting, and Japan Sega versus Nintendo Sega could not see eye to eye. It was weird. But we'll get. I guess we'll get that here in a bit. But yeah, we were like the generation to get like the front row seats of, like, let's go. Like, this is welcome to the birth of consoles and welcome to the birth of a console war. And it's like, ooh, let's go.
We grew up in a war-torn land.
Blood and trenches.
Trenches everywhere. We had to dig them ourselves, caked in mud.
Going home with your friend's watch to give to their mom and say we lost them. It was rough.
We are hardened men.
Battle hardened men, indeed. But when your daughter will look up at the wall one of these days and go, "Father, tell me the story behind the controller," and it'll be like a Nintendo 64 controller, and you just take a long draw, puff of your pipe and you're like,
weep.
Yeah, a tear drips down from your eye. You're like, Violet, my sweet daughter, let me tell you the story of the greatest battle ever waged. And
yes.
And she'll, like, walk up to your rocker and sit down with wide eyes. And you're like, it began in 1988.
How old am I in this scenario? Because you're describing me like
right now,
a
it's
grandpa.
Right now. It's right now. It's tomorrow, Scott. It's tomorrow. Okay. Violet's going to start
talking
talking
me
tomorrow.
as a grandpa, and you're describing Violet as like an 8-year-old. I'm like, I'm not that old.
Okay, whenever Violet has kids and you're a grandfather, that will be the thing where they're, like, teleporting their consciousness to, like, machines, and they zip out of like virtual reality for a moment, and they'll be like, "Grandfather, tell us the story of the first console war." And you're like, "Why do you all sound like
British
yeah, right? Yeah, my British grand. Britain retook America."
They came back. The War of 2312.
Dang, we lived for a while. But
Hey,
right.
modern medicine.
There you go. Taking your Flintstone vitamin, kids. All right. Let's get into it then. Actually, before we do,
Yes.
do you want to just do a quick catch up on what's going on with life and what we've been up to?
Yes. Carver,
Yes.
what's going on with the life? What have you been up to?
Oh, lots of projects. Working
Nice.
on another project that's a reanimation collab. Trying to get all these animators and artists on board and get the ball rolling with that. What about you, man? What you been up to?
Oh gosh, not too much. Little projects, a little different from your projects. My projects are
Tangible. They're tangible. You can see the results and bask in
Yes.
them. I'm jealous, actually.
I can touch my projects with my fingers and mess them up and do things wrong and spend money. No, we've been good. Just enjoying the day for what it is. We've been outside a couple times. We went for a jog this morning. It's been great. Everything's been going really, really well. But let's talk about consoles.
Let's do it.
And
Yeah.
video games.
Well, I want to start off with this question then, because I feel like this is a question to our generation. And again, like we're the millennials who are starting to make our way into our 30s, and it's welcome to the world of past 20, where I feel like 30s are when you start to kind of find this routine of being an adult, and it's up to you to make of it as you wish. That being said, like there are those dear memories to us of like, what was your first console? Like, what was yours, Scott?
As I recall, it was Sega Genesis.
Really? Okay, dude. Same.
Yeah.
Same.
Yep. Sega Genesis was our first one. We never actually had any of the NES systems like Nintendo or Super Nintendo. Nothing. Didn't actually ever have those.
This sounds eerie close to mine. I did you get a Nintendo 64?
Yeah. See, our first
did I.
intro into the Nintendo realm was N64. So we bypassed like a full generation of systems practically. I mean, I say full generation, but it's like two systems because there's the Nintendo and then the Super Nintendo, right?
Yeah, Nintendo
Yeah.
The Nintendo. I keep saying classic. That's a remake that's currently being sold. Yeah, there is the Nintendo, and then there is the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And
See, I played them, but we never owned them. We went straight to Sega.
dude, same. My father, I believe, bought the Sega Genesis for the family, and I recall
Wow.
playing like Sonic the Hedgehog,
Yeah.
Jurassic Park, this Little Mermaid game. We rented games from Blockbuster. That was so. I have to make this abundantly clear to folks who did not grow up with Blockbuster, and I will do my very best to not be the old man shaking his cane, because I'm not going to tell you that you kids have it good nowadays, because I also partake in streaming, and it's nice. It's nice to get it on demand. But there was something really wonderful about the tradition that my family had, where it would be like Friday, the end of the work week, and my dad would be like, let's go hit up Blockbuster. Let's go pick up 2 movies and a game. And that was just the routine. We usually go out to eat on Friday, go out to a restaurant and then hit up Blockbuster. And there was something really nice about walking up and down the aisles, picking a game, flipping over the box, looking at the art and what the game's like, and being like, Dad, I want this one. And bring it home and rent it and play it for the weekend. Like,
Yeah.
in hindsight, I mean, like, there's a reason why Blockbuster is gone, because it had very bad business practices and a bunch of suits who shot themselves in the foot. Scott, did you know that they passed up on buying Netflix for $10 million?
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Netflix is now worth, like, I think
Stupid.
its market capital is like in the hundreds of billions, I believe. It's insane. So,
Jeez.
yeah, talk about like hindsight's 2020, where they could have Blockbuster could exist today if they bought Netflix. There would be Netflix. But yeah, I mean, that's the way of, if you're not going to adapt, you're going to die. And but that being said, that there's a sweet era of just walking around. Dude, the Blockbuster in Town Lake, that's where I used to live in Georgia. It was a suburban neighborhood, and you could actually mark you can see the money that they're gathering from their business. Because the Blockbuster started off pretty simple with its design, just the aisles walking up and down, maybe a TV in the corner to play a movie. And then it evolved where it's wow, there's now a game section. There's now a card, like you can buy toys and cards at GameStop. There's these booths where you can walk up and play the games. It's just got fancy as hell. I remember
I remember it.
Do you remember the Pokemon Snap like printout stations?
Yeah, I remember those. I remember those well. Golly. Well, see, you say that the kids nowadays have it easy or better. I'm like, I mean, honestly, I'm like, not to say like that I generally super miss it. I'm like, I feel bad for the generation of kids that missed that.
Yep.
Like you're talking about, like you said it well. I mean, like it was a ritual. You go to these places to like just do like, it was just such, because your family and my family had the exact same ritual. We'd go to, I think, the same Blockbuster, the one right next to the library, right?
Correct. No. That there are two in town. Like there's the one near the library. That was the
better one.
Do you think so? We went to the one that was next to that's now the Panera Bread across the street from the Chick-fil-A.
Oh yeah, that was a Blockbuster, wasn't it? I remember that.
Yeah, that was like
I remember that.
That was popular.
I always went to the one that was next to the library and the Publix.
I know what you're talking about. My family would go to that one occasionally. Not to sound cruel, I thought that one was worse. I found it completely opposite. I remember that one being the first one to have the walk up and play the video games before you rent it situation. Like I remember walking around and like we just you literally would just stand there and you'd be able to play like the whole game and watch people play these video games, and they're like, oh yeah, that looks pretty cool. I think I want to rent that. I'm like, it's just the best. I'm like, it's just it was such a unique experience that it's just never gonna happen again. I feel like. No, it's not. It's
gone. Like Blockbuster it came and went in the time that it was. It's like in the time that it was supposed to be here. Like you said, they could have survived, but even if they survived, Blockbusters, like they still probably wouldn't have brick and mortar stores anymore.
No,
they just would be Netflix, like you said.
It's a cultural thing, and that's the thing. I fully acknowledge why it's gone. I fully understand why brick and mortar stores like Blockbuster are now a thing of the past, because on-demand streaming, why would you want to go to the store to get something we can just click download, done? And
I know. I mean, it's so much easier, but is it better? Get out of the house, do your ritual. Like, I mean, that was memory making. You know what I mean? Like you described it well. Like it was a memory making like ritual that you and your family did together. You went out to eat, you had family time, you rented movies, you rented a game. And now it's like, do you remember when we downloaded that game the other week? No, not really.
Yeah, well,
we did it together.
No, you're right.
Though.
You're right. Well, there was, I think, okay, that not just like the grandpa here, but there was a certain like cultural significance to it, and I do believe that in this day and age of immediate instant gratification, that like to savor the moment leading up to Friday, that was impactful, because it's like who will the treat of the week be more important to you when you just get it once a week or when you get it every single day? So yeah,
is it a treat anymore?
Is it
even a treat,
or is it just a routine? You're right, and I completely agree. And there's something culturally significant about also a community hub, because I remember seeing I remember seeing Eddie Carswell and walking around with Steven, and I was like, hey, there they are. Hey, what's up? How y'all doing? Good, cool. I'm getting this game. Bye. Actually, not to hurt my own feelings, but I recall me in middle school walking by, seeing Steven with a group of friends having a sleepover, and I'm like, well, I guess I wasn't invited.
Oh, burn. Ouch.
That was not a fun way to discover that. That was I was like, maybe you forgot to invite me, and then I saw the group of friends from my class, and I was like, ouch. I mean, I'm in your neighborhood. I didn't get an invite, but I'd be real with it. I wouldn't invite me either.
You were across the tracks in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I was on the worst part of town, Lake East.
Yeah.
So that all being said, though, like, I do miss it. I fully understand and will admit why it's gone, but at the same time, I do miss it. And
Yeah.
it was something culturally fun about it just to go there in person. I think, Scott, actually, hear me out. I think with how the internet is evolving and ever digging its hooks into people's lives to the point where it's like just a constant, I think there might be a resurgence in the near future of people who say this is a lifestyle or a thing where you unplug. We are here to support no phone policies. We're here to talk face to face, brush shoulders, to embrace a way of life that we're kind of putting behind us as we technologically advance, and we don't want to do that. We still think there's significance to physical interaction, and whether it be like to turn off your phone for a day or two, because I know it's important for work, but like, you know, you get to have constant news and information and drama and tabloids being pumped into your face. It's like, yeah, no, thank you, I'm done. Like, I think something like Blockbuster could come back, where it's like, welcome to a brick and mortar store where you can just unplug, walk around, and chill. I don't know. That's just a thought.
Yeah.
Just
that
possibly.
would be cool. That would be cool. And I think, honestly, you're right on the first half of what you're saying. I think there is going to be a resurgence of importance of going places and doing things, because especially right now, nobody can go any place and do anything pretty much.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Like in Georgia, pretty much everybody's, it's just about back to normal except for masks. But like California is still under like full on like house arrest. Like they can't do anything. Like businesses still haven't reopened. So I think you're right. There is going to be a resurgence of importance for people to get out, do things, and maybe not have their phone in their hand the whole time. I don't think that will, unfortunately, that will bring back the Blockbuster style business. I think it's gone and dead. I think the closest we'll ever get to that again, which we currently have, is Redbox.
Yeah, and Redbox feels like you're walking up to an ATM machine just to punch some buttons and walk away.
Exactly right. You do that. You do Redbox because you went shopping and you're like, oh, let's just see if they have a movie.
Yep.
It's because it's cheaper at Redbox to rent the movie from them than it is to typically download it on your smart TV. Like usually with Amazon, like if you want to rent a movie through Amazon, it's like $3 at least. Redbox is still like $1.80 or something like that.
Yep, I agree.
So, I think there's gonna be a resurgence, but it's not gonna be that, unfortunately, as much as it is. But let me turn this into. So we both had Sega Genesis.
Genocide.
Sega Genocide. What was your favorite game? Do you remember what your favorite game was for the Genesis?
OG Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, really? Okay, so I thought OG Sonic the Hedgehog was great. I think one of my favorite games, though, Sonic was wonderful, and it got me into. I would rent the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons all the time when I'd go to my Blockbuster.
Oh, dude, you mean the
VHS tape?
You mean the one with where it's like really cartoony and like I'm a Dr. Robotnik?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. The ones from the 90s. Yes, I remember. I used to rent the. Dude, I liked them so much. I'd rent the same videotape like 2-3 weeks in a row.
Bro, I'm about to blow your mind here. If you don't already know this, do you know who voices Sonic in that show?
Oh no, I do not.
Steve Urkel. Steve Urkel.
Of course he did.
Steve Urkel. And get this too. I when I was a kid, I was so obsessed with that cartoon that like it really goes to show you how impressionable kids are. Because I watched that show and I'm like, Sonic loves chili dogs. Gosh darn it, I love chili dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so my favorite game for the Sega Genesis actually was a bit darker. It was Terminator 2.
Okay, elaborate.
I loved the Terminator 2 video game for the Sega Genesis. It was so much fun. So, I think the reason I liked it so much is because we've mentioned him before, but for new listeners, I have an older brother. And typical of older brother, younger brother relationships, especially when you're kids, is you didn't always get along that much.
Yeah.
And that's fair. It's just the way it goes. So with Terminator 2, but like I say that like to where my brother was a little bit of a bully to me, but I was so obsessed with trying to be his friend that anything that we could like sink into made me so happy. So the reason I think part of why I loved Terminator 2 so much, besides the fact that it was just a really fun game and I loved the movie, was that it was the first person shooter that I can remember that you were able to play multiplayer.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
that's kind of groundbreaking. Oh, brother rivalry?
I mean, yes, because there was like a score count, and like at the end of each scenario, I think there was like a who did better. So there's definitely a bit of rivalry, but you were still working together to defeat the bosses and stuff. So like I want to say we owned that game. And we played the crap out of it. Like I loved that game so much. So fun. And it wasn't terribly hard. Like they did a good job of making it challenging for kids, but not like I cannot play this game. Sometimes Sonic
good.
to me was like
hard,
a little difficult.
Dude, so to give a quick okay, so we both started off with a Sega Genesis. I knew of Nintendo. I had friends who had Nintendo. I always wanted one.
Yeah.
Never got one. My family was just like, just don't worry about it. Well, you have the Sega Genesis. That's fine. And I also know the Super Nintendo, and I like Mario and Donkey Kong, because I had a friend back when I was a kid, when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, and he had a Nintendo. And as a dumb, very surface level kid, I was like, friendships equate to what can I get out of it, or through materialism. And I would go to my friend's house just to play the stuff. And
I had those same friends. Absolutely.
Well, you're a dumb kid because I think kids love stuff, because kids they haven't lived long enough to really appreciate like experience to have.
They just don't really like appreciate they don't know what a real relationship is.
Well, they don't.
Even just between friends, they don't really know,
because they haven't suffered. They haven't had experience, whether it be good or bad. Like,
so you're saying we should make kids suffer so they appreciate what they have.
We got to put them through Spartan-like training from 2 to 5, and that way those ungrateful twerps can actually appreciate life.
Yes, that's what it is.
Violet will come back after slaying a wolf with a spear, and we'll be like, "Hail to the victorious dead!" But I knew of the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo. Had the Sega Genesis. I'm about to bring it in here with something different. Actually, before I continue on, because it's another console. But the Sega Genesis was great. I played this Jurassic Park game that was terrifying. That was the one that T-Rex goes, Sega, when it's on the screen.
I think I rented that game a few times, and it was so difficult.
No, your brother, you played it together. Because back in the day, in 2015, 2015 was this really interesting year in life, for me in particular, where it was between the Brony stuff, where I kind of quit. I stopped doing Brony stuff in 2014. The YouTube career stuff started to take off during 2016. 2015 was this nice, chilled out, fun year of experimentation, in particular with you and Tyler, where we made like sketch comedy videos. And that's right. Well, we had a Let's Play channel where we played like this Aladdin Sega game, and we played the Jurassic Park one. I remember seeing your brother play the Jurassic Park one, and we were getting our butts kicked, and I'm like, God, that's right, this game's hard.
Yeah, that game was so difficult. Just truly, truly impossible.
It was unforgiving.
Yeah, it was. I think it's funny that you said you had like the friend with the Nintendo, because that's what I had. I had this friend with the Nintendo, and I don't know if it's because like we were both poor or something, but like my friend with the Nintendo is like, he didn't just have the Nintendo, but he had like the Nintendo, all the other cool toys. Like, dude had like Army Men on top of Army Men on top of Army Men. Like, you wanted to have a war with Army Men, you went to this kid's house because he had enough for like 8 countries worth.
Dang, dude, we're stacked. Well, back in the day, just having a kid who had cool toys from a rich family equated to you're popular. And
Yeah, pretty much.
like I remember,
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, I was gonna say, well, I was thinking like the game that I remember best for Nintendo. I think I might be thinking of Super Nintendo though, is the problem. I know I'm thinking of Super Nintendo when I was thinking of that game Double Dragons and Battletoads.
oh yeah,
That's Super Nintendo, wasn't it? That game was amazing. I loved that game so much. It's
Battletoads.
so ridiculous.
I only heard about that later on in life because of how difficult it was. And that it became a bit of a meme because folks were like, bring back Battletoads, or do you have Battletoads? Because apparently it became very exclusive and rare and hard to find.
Yeah.
But
I remember loving that game, and I think I remember playing Duck Hunter a lot with him.
oh yeah,
was that on the regular Nintendo?
That was on OG Nintendo. Yeah, with a little plastic gun, and you quack quack quack.
Yeah. When you played it, did you put the gun against the screen?
Which apparently did nothing.
It didn't help at all. If anything, it made you less accurate.
Yeah, right. I
felt like the sensor wasn't picking up right, so you're like shooting to the left of the screen and killing ducks in the far right corner.
Yeah, right. How do I shoot that one? I'm aiming at it.
I definitely did that. I was trying to cheat so hard on that game. It's like, you just put it right on the duck. You can't miss. And I miss anyway.
Yeah, gross.
As bad as a stormtrooper.
Right. So one last blockbuster story, and then I'm going to tell you about my the next console I got in my life. So went to one of the friends who I mentioned who had the lots of stuff. I was invited to a sleepover to his house for his birthday. Me and his friends and himself, of course, and his father went to the Blockbuster in Town Lake. We're walking up and down the aisle. We could get like 5 games. His dad's like, go crazy. And I remember being like, yo, Alex, get this game. Alex, get this game, please. And his dad, like, he didn't snap, but very sternly looked at me and said, hey, Steven, is it your birthday? No. How about we let Alex pick what he wants? And I was like, that destroyed me. Like the fact that I still vividly remember that is a testament to how like it became a core memory of, because I'll fully admit I was being a punk kid and I need to back off and let Alex pick it. It is his birthday after all. Fortunately, we got the game after all, but I was like, I became scared of him. Like the father's, not scared, but cautious of like, he's a stern man and I don't want to be on his bad side. So
absolutely,
because as a kid, like, I mean, like I've seen like friends' parents like yell at the kid and I'm like, oof, I better go. Like, I gotta go.
Oh yeah, totally. And so I've been in situations plenty.
I'm gonna tell you about, but the thing is, I remember hanging out with you. Like, after, of course, we were like high schoolers, but like your parents were really chill. Like your parents were always like, "Hey, what's up, Carver?" And I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" Your parents always chilled out. Watch movies with them too. Like watch movies with your family. That was nice. Good memories.
Yeah. My parents always were. They still are. They're pretty chill about stuff.
Okay,
they're pretty chill.
I'll tell you about the next console I got. I mean, it might be
go ahead. What was the next one that you managed?
The Game Boy, the OG Game Boy. I got that. That was the 4 AA batteries to run, black and white, no backlights. It was. I feel old, man. I feel so old talking about this. It's that Simpson joke where it's like Homer's dad was getting like blasted by Barney and Homer. This is a flashback where Homer and Barney are like, shut up, old man. Like, you're not cool. And then Homer's dad was like, oh, I know what you're talking about. I used to say the same thing to my dad, that my father wasn't cool and that he wasn't with it. Well, look at me. And now I'm old. And guess what? It will happen to you, too. And it's like, he's not wrong. He's not. Like, it's happening right now where if I mentioned like VHS tapes to my nieces, they'll be like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, here we go. It's happening. But the Game Boy, I had this Tiny Toon Adventures game on it. I had a Star Wars game, which was insanely difficult. That was hard. I had WarioWare, I believe, on it. And since you didn't have a backlight, you had to like be in a well-lighted area to play it. Because at nighttime, if it's dark, you can't play the game because you can't see it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I remember the OG Game Boy. That thing was a brick.
Oh, what? What? It was like larger than one of those TI calculators.
Yeah, it was intense. We had golly, I'm trying to think. I can't remember what I think we may have had like a weird Game Boy version of Turok Dinosaur Hunter on the Game Boy.
Game Boy for real?
It's probably like the Game Boy Advanced or something like that.
Okay.
We definitely had Paperboy. Definitely had Paperboy on Game Boy.
There you go.
That was definitely a Game Boy. That I loved Paperboy actually. I thought that game was fun.
What about oh gosh. Okay, actually no, before I continue on, I'm going to tell you one of my dumb kid logic like stories, okay?
Okay, go on.
And I told my mother this not too long ago. She didn't know, and I was like hanging with my family during the 4th of July this year, and they were just. I told my mom this story, and she like facepalmed, and she's like, "You did what?" And I told her that my dumb logic was, okay, my AA batteries are running low. Well, how can I recharge them? Oh, I know. I'll put them in my mouth and swig them around in my mouth like mouthwash and spit them out and dry them and put them back on the Game Boy. And
yes.
I think taking them out of the Game Boy and putting them back in might reduce it for a second, or at least reassess it so you get more power. But I thought me just swigging them around my mouth was what did it. And I'm like, it works. And so I would do that. My mom's, you're swigging AA batteries in your stupid kid mouth? Like, what were you thinking? And I'm like, well, clearly, Mom, I wasn't, because I was a dumb kid.
Oh, yeah. You remember how you used to test a battery? Like, you put it to the tip of your tongue or whatever to see if it still had any, like, acid left?
I didn't do that. I think my...
Really? I did.
I think I bleached my brain out by just putting battery acid in my mouth. But yeah, thank God it never blew up in my mouth or leaked. That would have been GG.
Yeah, seriously. We used to do the thing where like I think there was more to it, but you'd like basically take the battery and you put the end of it on your tongue, and if it tasted like warm, or if it was warm on your tongue,
if it tasted like warm.
Yeah, like, or if like you could, or basically if it like tasted like basically like acid, then it's like, oh, this battery still got some juice in it, I can use it. That's how you test out batteries to see if it's still alive or not.
There you go.
And now we're all dumb.
Yeah, there's a reason why we're all the dumb right now.
Yeah. Oh goodness. All right. So let's see. We never had the Nintendo. What did you say was your next system? Oh, the Game Boy. We're on the Game Boy.
Did you have the Game Boy at all, or?
We did briefly. I want to say we actually had the Game Boy. Gosh, when we had it, I think we actually had the Game Boy randomly later in life. Like, for some reason, Tyler was given an OG Game Boy by a friend of his, and we played it then, and it was still fun. I'm like, I think we tried to like figure something out on it. I don't totally remember everything, but I do remember that Game Boy. And I'm like, I remember liking it, and I remember playing. I think it was Paperboy on it. But I mean, it didn't really get good to me, those little handheld games, until we got to like Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advanced, when it was like, oh, Pokemon, let's do it.
Oh yeah, dude, Pokemon was a game changer. I vividly recall like getting Pokemon Blue because I like turtles, and I got the Squirtle one.
Yeah,
playing on my Game Boy, I was hooked on that game. Of course I did. What do you mean? I was hooked on Pokemon Blue to the point where my mom would say things like, I regret ever getting this game. You're addicted to it. And I'm like, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Hell yeah, I am, Mom. And she's like, what you just say? And I'm like, nothing. But I recall getting the Game Boy Pocket eventually, which is like a slimmer version of the Game Boy.
Yeah, I remember that one. Uh-huh.
I would sneak my Game Boy Pocket to school, to church. One time I snuck it to church, and I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I need to use the bathroom. And I went to use the bathroom, and I sat in the stall for 20 minutes playing Pokemon. And I was like thinking, what if she finds me? What if she walks in? And lo and behold, she did. She kicked that, Steven! And I'm like, uh-oh. She's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm pooping. She's like, no, you're not. Like, get out. And I folded like paper. I was like, you got me. And she snacked up my my Game Boy. She snagged it up and threw it in her purse. And she's like, you can't have this anymore. And I'm like, no. I got it back. But yeah, Game Boy with the Pokemon, like, geez, that was it, man. That was a game. I mean, to this day, Pokemon's still a massive. I mean, it's never matched its initial push, I'd say. Because when Pokemon first arrived, it was like, folks don't know this, but Pokemon's like legit one of the greatest, most successful franchises in human history, and it's had such a long shelf life. To this very day, it's still on the decline in popularity, but its initial success was so massive that it's like our declining success is still eclipses other people's success, and it's like, gosh, you guys are just killing it. So it's nuts.
The Pokemon team, like, they keep innovating to get these new sudden spurts of popularity. Like, I thought Pokemon was dead, and then they did Pokemon Go for
that was a game changer.
Smartphones. I was like, I mean, I never played it, just because I was finally, by the time that came out, like, I was a little too old, and I just didn't. I don't use my phone that much. I don't rely on my phone that heavily for like work or anything. So I'm just like, I have one because I need one.
Yeah.
And that's about it. But I'm like, the kids I was working with at like Starbucks and stuff, when Pokemon Go was like first out, was like, they were obsessed. And I say kids, but they were all like, they're like 20-year-olds and stuff like that. But I'm like, Pokemon just like out of nowhere, just like, boom, Pokemon Go, huge success, massive amounts of downloads, people getting into like car wrecks and walking into traffic to catch Pokemon.
Dude, you're not even joking.
I'm not.
I recall in 2016 when it like first came out, how people were using it at conventions, walking around like it was a perfect convention companion because you walk around and I think it's one of those things where it's like, by and large, it's very positive. Like, people are out walking around, exercising, exploring, getting, that's always a positive. And there'll be the crazy side stories of like people walking into traffic when it's not the game's fault. That's clearly on that individual's fault for not being aware. Because even if you like, I mean, come on, bro, like, don't walk into traffic. But that was also the year when folks were like, I can't wait to walk around. And like, I was in Baltimore for convention in 2016. And that's when the Black Lives Matter protests were like heating up. I mean, they don't hold a candle to what's going on today by a long shot, which again, like, it's funny how things just escalate. But I recall, like, I had a friend who's like, I'm going to do some Pokemon Go outside in the city. And then there were literal marches in the street where the traffic was shut down. I'm like, you sure you want to go out there? Because it can get pretty heated if you're not careful. And he's like, I'll walk around the hotel lobby instead. It's like, okay.
But I see a Charizard out there in the middle of that group of people.
Dude, that's a Charizard. It's worth it. Just sprinting around protesters or swinging their picket signs at you. It's like, you guys, you don't understand. It's Charizard. Oh, okay. Let him through.
Make space.
Yeah, break ranks.
Oh man, yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Game Boys were a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. Like, that was the first time you could take a video game outside. That was a big deal. Like, that was cool. I remember really enjoying that. That was a vacation saver for us, because like, I mean, we didn't have TVs in the back of headrests and stuff when we'd go on vacation. So it was like, you'd listen to your Walkman, or you'd play your Game Boy for 8 hours.
Yeah. So I feel like I need to move things along because we're
keep going. We're already like way behind.
All right, so let's move on to, I think, the first. So there's the Nintendo versus the Sega. We both, like, being kids, we didn't have much of a choice in the matter. So we both had Segas, and
it's what we were given.
I fully acknowledge that Nintendo had some fantastic titles, and it was probably the winner to walk away from that war. And Sega put up a fight, lost because of just infighting and internal politics of their own company. But it was like, okay, there's a new challenger. Apparently, Sega had a chance where they could have gotten with PlayStation, but it didn't work out. And PlayStation's like, well, we'll just do our own thing. And PlayStation arrived, and that was a game change. I think the PlayStation might be the most critical evolution, because that was like, okay, I'm sure there's some technicalities of people saying, oh, there's the Dreamcast, there's a Saturn and everything. But I think
they don't hold a candle. They really
not to the PlayStation. They don't. PlayStation was unreal. Massive library, I never owned one, but my gosh, that system was like welcome to the future. Like, here we go. So I didn't have one. I never owned one.
Really? Oh, we did. We had the PS1. Well, the PlayStation, affectionately referred to as PS1 once 2, 3, and 4 came out. We had one, the little gray box, real slim, big old buttons.
Yep. Twisted Metal?
I gotta say, oh gosh, yes. Twisted Metal was such a fun game. Holy crap, was that fun. Twisted Metal, I want to say Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was first on
was that on
PlayStation?
Oh my gosh.
I think so. I don't remember if it came out on N64 first or PlayStation. I don't really remember. I thought that's a hard one to come back to.
I thought it was N64.
I think. See, we had the N64 first, and then I think we eventually got the PlayStation. We were never allowed to have more than one console at our house. So if we had something, if we had the N64 and we wanted the PlayStation, we had to sell the N64. We were selling games and systems online and through whatever means we had at the time, like way before like it was the thing to do. Like we were selling stuff early on in our lives to reinvest into something else that we wanted.
There you go.
Like we did that real early. So like, yeah, I remember the PlayStation 1. I can't say I remember all the games. Honestly, I think Twisted Metal was the one that I remember best because it's probably the most popular I can think of. I think PlayStation had a lot of sports games.
Yes, they did. A lot. That was, I think, when Madden started to really like get popular.
Yeah, EA Sports was like massive with PlayStation. FIFAs, the Maddens, all that stuff. Like that was really popular on PlayStation. I think before N64, while it did take up some sports genre games, like it was never quite like the way PlayStation in the original, like the PlayStation really took up to it. Because I remember having like FIFA 94 or something like that.
Oh Lord, dude! I remember. So okay, the PlayStation arrived, and was like Sega was basically out of the picture at this point and fallen to the wayside. Nintendo rocked it out by doing the Nintendo 64. And that was my next console. That was the first real home console that I actually had a choice in the matter where I'm like, Mom, Dad, I want this. And I remember getting it for, I believe, my birthday or Christmas. And I had Star Wars, The Shadows of the Empire. And I was like, oh my gosh. The first level is the Battle of Hoth, which is like one of my favorite scenes from cinema up to that point. Still remains one of my favorites. And I was flying around the 3D world. I'm like, this is the coolest stuff ever. And that was, again, like there's something to be said about the simplicity of it all, where you only had like a game or a handful of games. But my gosh, because you were limited, you were going to play the hell out of those games.
Oh, yeah. Oh, N64 was such a great system. I love Star Wars, but I hated flying games. That's where you and I probably differ most. I remember that about you specifically. You loved the flying games.
Wait. So even Star Fox?
Didn't like it.
Wow. I don't like you. I think we're done here.
Yeah, we're done. Friendship ended. Everyone, you heard it. This friendship is over, and this is the final podcast.
How dare you? No, why didn't you like it?
I think for some reason at the time, flying games I think they were just too difficult for me. I think ultimately it was like they were too difficult for me, but they also they just didn't seem to hold my attention.
Okay.
Enough. Like to me, it was like, okay, I'm flying in this scene. All right, I beat the level. What's the next level like? Oh, I'm flying in this one too. You know what I mean? Like it just it felt like too much of a repetition. Granted, like the people that like them, you know, like yourself, like that was probably the best thing in the world. Seeing that in cockpit visual, doing the loops and the spins and shooting down people in dogfights. Like I get the idea of it being cool, but I'm like, for me in actual playing, it's like I tried the games, I tried Star Fox. I was just kind of like, nah,
it's not wasn't for me. That's fine. I respect them. I don't relate, but I respect it. So, like, what did you play then?
I mean, Mario 64. I played the crap out of that game. I just absolutely played the crap out of it.
See, I was a weird kid where like the actual big games of the consoles, like Zelda and Mario. I don't think Metroid was on the Nintendo 64, but there was
Which
some
one?
Metroid, like with Samus and stuff. So
no, I think it.
Was
I think it was.
I know it was the Game Boy
I'm pretty
Advance.
sure it was.
Long story short, I was a weirdo where I played the weird like third-party developer games with Star Wars and I played Turok, I believe. Turok was fun with the weird weapons.
Oh my gosh. Yes, Turok was so much fun. And I tell you, the best thing about N64, truly the best thing about N64, the Game Shark.
Dude, that was unfair. Like,
I loved that Game Shark.
So folks who don't know, the Game Shark was this really bizarre mechanism where you would plug it into the N64 and it had a weird thing on top of it where you can plug the game on top of the Game Shark, and it provided cheat codes where it's like, I want to be able to fly, or I want invulnerability for this game. And it's
big head mode.
Big head mode, yeah. It was such a weird, cumbersome way of doing it, but my God, it worked. And it made me feel like a god, like walking around.
And
Turok.
Turok was the best game for cheat codes. The slow motion deaths, getting to have all the cool weapons over and over again. Like, we'd just be blasting these guys with the rocket launcher, just flying, just slow motion to the air. And then Turok was one of the first games where, like, after the person died, you could actually still hit them again. So, like, you could shoot them into the air. They'd be flying through the air, bleeding and screaming from a rocket explosion. And then when you do while they're flying in the air in slow motion, you hit them with another rocket.
Yeah. Dude, I actually wonder if it's on Steam now. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But, yeah, Turok was a fun one. Like, I think you and I were... It's by the way, I'll address something that some of the viewers are like, so when are they going to versus... So I think we'll get our versus match here in a bit. At the moment, we're kind of, Scott and I are running parallels because we grew up with on. So I feel like we can both say we prefer the Genesis because of what we grew up with. We didn't have the luxury of playing both consoles at the same time to really judge it fairly because we were kids. We couldn't control that. But as we get older, it's like, okay, there's a bit more control. I would. I mean, again, like as I grew up, like I had every Game Boy version. I got the Game Boy Advanced, which was colored. I get the Game Boy Advance right before the Game Boy SP arrived, and the Game Boy SP actually had a backlight. And it's like, what's the point of having the Game Boy Advance? There's no backlight. Who cares? And so I remember playing like Castlevania on my Game Boy Advance. I thought that was a lot of fun. And but still, I was like, man, I got ripped off. I got ripped off, bro. I playing Lord of the Rings video game on my Game Boy Advance, and I'm like, man, my next door neighbor's got the Game Boy SP, and he's got a backlight. You can play at nighttime. This sucks. There was
worse, but garbage.
There was this really bizarre like accessory you can plug into it that actually had a light and speakers on it.
I remember that. Yes, I had one of those.
Yeah.
I absolutely had one of those. Oh, and it was like a little like it was like it was movable, so you could bend it. It would stay in a certain position.
Yep.
It was basically like a book light, but for your Game Boy.
Yep. Wow, you nailed it. It was a book light for your Game Boy. That's exactly it. By the way,
oh man,
Turok
I've forgotten about that.
Turok's on Steam. I'm buying it right now. It's for $5.
Oh yes, perfect. Turok is the best. Another game I loved, you mentioned, I actually forgot about, freaking Zelda. N64 Zelda was still one of the best games ever.
So it can be argued that like Ocarina of Time is like one of the greatest Zelda games of all time.
Yeah, I think the only one I ever played, I've played two Zelda games that I've ever actually like enjoyed and beaten, and that was Ocarina of Time. And then the one that came out for GameCube, Wind Waker.
I played that too,
so
dude.
Good.
Wind Waker was amazing because of the open world aspect of it all, where you
Yes.
can go out and explore the ocean with the boats. That was I was a weirdo because at the time I was playing it, I was like on a Billy Joel binge, and I would play this weird like this down eastern Alexis like boat song from Billy Joel. I would listen to it while sailing the ocean with
Wow, you were like actually living it.
Yeah, dude. I was like, look at me, I'm a sailor.
Cracking open some beers and wearing a life jacket with my boat shoes on.
Gotta provide for my kids on the mainland. But like there was Wind Waker was, we'll get to the GameCube. I think that's when things get really colorful. But yeah, the Game Boy Advance, I had that. The Game Boy Color was before the Game Boy Advance. I had that as well, as the name implies. That's when they brought color to the system. Nintendo was basically uncontested when it came to handheld gaming, and it can be argued that it basically won that front until the arrival of mobile devices like phones. Mobile devices are not as advanced as Game Boy or the 3DS, but actually the Nintendo Switch is portable, which blows it all out of the water. But mobile games are the ones that beat now. But to go back to Game Boy, like Sega had their big like, I think it had like those massive batteries, and it actually had a backlight, and it was colored. Like they had a handheld system that was like way ahead of the curve, where it's like, wow, this is like straight up like amazing. And the only downside was it required so much battery life to power. I forget the game. Oh gosh, let me look it up. It escapes me. Sega handheld console. Let me see what it's called.
Oh, I remember it. I can remember what it looks like.
The Game Gear, I believe was no, or maybe it was the Game Gear. It might be the Game Gear. I think it was.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I remember. It looked exactly like the Sega Genesis controllers, but it was just extra big. Because you had to put the little cartridge right into it.
Is that it? Here.
I can see it. Oh, I can see it. Yeah, that's it. Oh my goodness. I feel like I remember it being shaped differently, but that's definitely it.
Dude, look at that. It
wow.
had a TV radio.
Ah!
That's wild. That's wild. What was so ahead of the curve? Like, just insane how Sega was advancing way beyond Nintendo. But, like, there are moments in history where it's like, the world's not ready for this yet. Like, you are before your time. And it seems that, like, with their handheld devices, at least, Sega was their ideas outpaced the technology. Because
when you add a TV antenna on the top of the thing, goodness.
Well, and especially when it costs those expensive batteries to run it, like that was way too much. So
I'm noticing something on this picture though, and I love the ingenuity of it. Game Boys always had the A and B button, right? Two buttons, A and B. Yeah. The Sega's like, no. We're doing 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
A and B, 1 and 2.
1 and 2. Yeah, don't at us. We know what we're doing. I mean, I got to give props to Sega for. I think
I'd forgotten about that thing. Golly,
just their existence alone forced Nintendo to have to raise their standards. And also it loosened the grip that Nintendo had on the gaming industry. And it also inspired other companies to say, we want to cut of that gaming industry pie. So even if Sega lost that console war, they still left, their impact can be felt to this day. And I think that's cool.
Yeah.
So, the PlayStation 1, I didn't have that. N64, I had that. I played a bunch of N64 games like Battle Tanks. I played...
Yeah. Oh, Battle Tanks was great.
Turok, but it wasn't until the PlayStation 2. And by the way, I mean, N64 had 3D animation. I played Star Wars Rogue Squadron. That was great. But it was the PlayStation 2 where I think it finally, like, solidified, like, wow, this console. I mean, it could play DVDs, bro. Like, that was...
That's right.
That was wild.
I get the introduction of gaming discs from cartridges was a huge step.
Massive.
Because I think it enabled, like you're saying, it enabled the console to be able to do more. You could play CD. I remember putting CDs that I bought into like my PlayStation or my Xbox or something so I could listen to the music through the TV, and I thought that was so cool.
That was
couldn't do that with anything else.
It's something where kids nowadays take it for granted because it's like, just play on Spotify, which is fine. I use Spotify too. But like, there's something really, and kids growing up right now will still have those moments where will be new technology introduced that you'll be like, wow, this is game changer. And then 20 years later, you'll realize that it's been outpaced because that's just technology, especially on the exponential scale of how it evolves and grows. Like, okay, the PlayStation 2 had DVDs. My first game, and by the way, the PS2 is arguably one of the greatest gifts I was ever given because it was in the year 2000. I was at Christmas get together with my family, my extended family. I recall waking up Christmas morning, walking into the living room, the first one awake, and seeing my pile of toys, and it was a PlayStation 2 with Ace Combat 4 and a bunch of Bionicle and a BB gun. And I'm like, this is the greatest day of my life. Like, nothing will top it. And I'll be real with you. There's been some days that's still been a hard day to rival as life is going on, where there's a certain simplicity and joy of being a kid walking into Christmas morning and seeing that you got everything you hoped for plus more. That was great. But PS2, that was my first arrival to the first legit console war. And that would be, it was a three-way giggity, where it was the PlayStation 2 versus the Xbox. Microsoft is now into the war. And then the Nintendo GameCube. Scott, what do you think? What was your take?
Man. I've had all three. Actually, I want to jump back to PS1 for a second.
Okay.
And I remember one of my favorite games ever for PS1, and I think they even continued into PlayStation 2, Siphon Filter. The whole series of Siphon Filter 1, 2, and 3. Did you ever play those?
No.
Oh gosh. Oh, they were such good games. They were, what's that one game that came out like Xbox with the spy guy? Oh, what was it called? I
don't know.
Oh, it's going to kill me. I wanted to make this comparison a few days ago on this podcast because I was like, it was the Predator. It was the pre-this. I'm like, oh, it's killing me.
James Bond?
No. I mean, James Bond as a character was out way before Siphon Filter. No, it's the... I'm going to hate myself. I'm going to think of it after we're done recording, probably. In any case, it was basically the first game that I'd ever played outside of, like, GoldenEye, where you were, like, espionage, like...
Metal Gear?
You were... Huh?
Metal Gear?
No, it wasn't Metal Gear. I mean, the game I'm thinking of is Siphon Filter. The game I'm talking about is Siphon Filter, but the game I'm thinking of is something completely else, something else entirely, and it's Splinter Cell.
Oh, yeah, Splinter Cell. I know what you're talking about.
It just hit me. Splinter Cell. This game, to me, was Splinter Cell before Splinter Cell. It was it was like a marriage of, like, because James Bond, like the James Bond game, GoldenEye, one of the best, again, N64 came out with some of those games that are, like, to this date, people are still like, God, that was one of the best games ever. GoldenEye. Freaking GoldenEye. So to me, Siphon Filter was like, if you took GoldenEye and then married it up to what Splinter Cell would be, or I guess Metal Gear, but Metal Gear is amazing on its own. Metal Gear was a little more intense. This is a little more campy.
Yeah.
It was like the most campy, roguey, spy, undercover Black Ops kind of vibe. And it was so fun. Oh, it was so fun. We'd get some cheat codes for it, of course. And we'd get this one thing that made it so fun. It was like a long-range taser. And you just tase bad guys with it and hold it down. And they would catch on fire.
Dude,
it was pretty sadistic, I guess, in a way. It was pretty terrible.
That's great.
But it was hilarious. And anyway, on to the PS2,
actually,
the original, the first console war.
Hold tight. So I'm gonna run down. No, a quick pause here in the editing. I'm gonna run downstairs and use the bathroom, and also get a quick drink, and then we can continue on with the PS2, GameCube, Xbox. Which I'll continue when we get back. When I get back.
Back. All right, that's fine.
The counts of beer.
Oh my goodness. I gotta tell you though, guys, those of you that might remember Siphon Filter was just such a silly and fun game, and I hope I'm not making a huge misstep by comparing it to Splinter Cell and what did I say? And James Bond. That might be a massively dumb scenario, but it was just such a silly like goofball game. Because like I would remember playing it and you would never do anything stealthy. Like that, which is the classic James Bond kind of thing from GoldenEye. It's like you're a secret agent, but you weren't really a stealthy secret agent. You just run into the scenario and just start shooting guns off and alarms blaring, and it wouldn't really matter because it's about the action. The fun was in the action. So this game was kind of like that, but there were moments where you could or were supposed to be stealthy, like in Splinter Cell, where you can't make noise and stuff like that. It was silly fun. Realistically, the main reason I loved it was catching people on fire with the taser thing. It was just so funny. Just seeing this long arching just electrical beam shoot out and hit a guy, and he was just vibrating until he was on fire. It's kind of disgusting. But one thing I do miss is I loved the sound that a cartridge would make. The discs that came out, I mean, we already said it, were like a huge leap forward in the ability of systems, like being able to play DVD movies. Like you didn't have N64 couldn't play a VHS, but a PlayStation could play a DVD. You wouldn't need a DVD player if you had a PlayStation 2 at least. And it was so cool. It was just so cool. But I miss the sound of a cartridge, like this little, like, it almost provided a sense of security that the game is in there, you know, like it has made contact, it's locked in, the whole thing. And I kind of miss that sound. It was such a unique memory for me, and I'm sure Carver would agree, were he not off doing his thing right now. Excuse me. But that cartridge noise was so great. I kind of wish, I don't really get to play video games anymore, but the times that I at least even get to watch them, I'm like, I'll watch my brothers-in-law play a game on their PS4s, but I'm like, I kind of wish there was still that, like that noise of just cartridge going into system. Like that, the Game Boys had it, the Sega had it because there was a cartridge system. Although Sega had a disc version as well, but the cartridge system, I think, was better. The Genesis had the cartridge. The N64 had it. I cannot think of how many times I just remember hearing that. I'm like, ugh. It was such a great noise. So many memories coming from that. It's like, that was like the original, for me anyway. You think back, of like, that's like the original ASMR for nerdy people. It's just like that. Or I'm probably not even imitating the noise correctly, but it was just so much fun. So much fun. My brother and I played, we played N64. Like, I was addicted to video games in the worst way. I would have like, not only was I addicted to video games, but I was definitely addicted to cartoons. So like, we had in like my brother and I's game room, which wasn't really a game room. It was more like the dog room. It was an extra room that we would have like a pool table in. We had like 2 extra TVs, and we had our system in there, so we could watch TV on one. That was like the bigger TV, and then we'd play video games on the other. I'd have the TV on. I'd be playing a video game on the other. It's just like the radio would be on in the other corner of the room. It was just so much action at once. It was way too much. So way overstimulated, but I was so addicted to that mess. I'd be watching SpongeBob and playing PS2 at the same time, and like my parents would walk in and just shake their heads and walk out probably, and be like, oh, this kid's a waste of space. Most certain. I don't know if y'all heard that, but that was my daughter.
I'm back.
Hey, were you still recording that whole time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was just talking to everybody, so if there's anything you want to keep, you can still keep it.
Hell yeah.
I just kept talking about my reminiscence of and fond memories of the sound that it would make when you were plugging a cartridge into a system versus putting a disc in a tray.
Yeah, you're right. Did you ever have to do the blowing of the cartridge?
Oh yeah, I did. I mean, all the time.
Apparently, you weren't supposed to do that. It wasn't supposed to be able to help. I was like, it helped me.
It helped me all the time. I don't know what you're talking about. I still blow into stuff to get things to work.
All right, let's move on. PS2 versus Xbox versus GameCube. The first,
oh gosh,
the first trifecta war, right?
Yeah, it really was. So I will just immediately say I was in Xbox camp.
Real okay. Elaborate. So it was the first one you got?
Yeah, I believe it was. So I was just saying, but I can reiterate. I believe I did have the PS2, or at least I had friends who had it, so I was very familiar with the PlayStation 2. But I think, like I said before, like when it came to getting a system at my house growing up, my brother and I had to agree on what we wanted, and we had to sell whatever we had before to get it ourselves.
That's
or at least to help get it.
Enterprising. So you sold your N60 or your PlayStation 1 then?
Yeah, I believe we sold our PlayStation 1, and we might have even had an N64 and a PlayStation 1 at the same time, because like Tyler and I saved up and bought the PlayStation 1, and then we asked for the N64 for Christmas, or the other way around. So I think at one point we may have had two consoles, but the Xbox was huge. So, and also it was way more expensive. So we had to sell. Oh, good.
If you don't mind me saying real fast, I do want to give a quick little side note. About in 2015, Scott, Tyler, and I, we all played Gauntlet Legend, which was a game that we had so much fun replaying, because I would come back home from work from lifeguarding and come over to Tyler's house where Scott was living with at the time, and we all just get on our on the N64 and play Gauntlet Legend. That was just, we drink some beers and play some games. That was good times, man. That was a good time.
Yeah, it was.
Sorry, shout out to, I think that's the most important thing about consoles, are the good memories you get from it, from fellowshipping with friends. There's something really sweet about that. All right. So Xbox, continue. I apologize.
Yeah, so no, you're good. You're good. So Xbox being more expensive, it was like, I mean, we've said it a million times, but like a game-changing upgrade.
Huge.
Even from what we thought was like N64, not PS2, but per se, but N64, that was 3D. That was amazing. This was like, holy crap, way better. So we had to sell like our PS1 and our N64, and we decided to go the Xbox route instead of like PS2. And I don't regret the decision in any way, because I loved the Xbox.
Well, man. What did you like about the console, and what games did you have?
So the console, like, I thought the console alone just looked really cool. Like this big, bold black box with an X with like this bright green and like white gold X in the center of it. I was like, oh, thing just looks futuristic.
Okay.
So I love the aesthetic of it, but I just like the games that I think the reason we really bought the Xbox was probably because of Halo.
Dude, I'll be real with you. A quick recap. Played PS2, Ace Combat 4, played, because PS2 had a pretty strong arsenal of games too. But I remember when Halo arrived. And it is easily argued that if it wasn't for Halo, Xbox would have died. Because I straight up bought an Xbox. That was my first purchase of my own money ever. I saved it from birthdays and Christmas money and stuff, where I took that money and I'm like, I want Halo. And I even rented other games that argued to be the PS2 equivalent of Halo, like Time Split, I believe. And I played those games. I'm like, it's not the same. I want to be humanity fighting aliens in the future. That's so cool. Yes. I played Halo, got Xbox, I plugged it in, I played it, and I'm like, this is I love Halo. I think the other games I played leading up to that point, but I think Halo was the first franchise ever where I became like straight on, like, I mean, obviously toy franchise like Star Wars and Lego and Thomas the Tank Engine and stuff leading up to that point, but Halo was where I was like, oh, this is cool. This is really cool. Like, just blowing up aliens.
Oh, yeah. You know what it is about Xbox and Microsoft's Xbox that I love so much over PlayStation's?
What's that?
Was their bread and butter, it seemed like, was first-person shooters.
Yes, which was a evolving genre at that time.
That is, I'd say still to this day, like, that type of gaming style was just what spoke to me.
You
like
know,
to me, that was you in it. So I thought it was just the greatest thing.
You can thank Doom for that. I played a little bit. I played Doom for like a day once at my uncle's, and I was terrified of it. And
scared the crap out of me.
Well, I played Doom 2016 and played Doom Eternal. I love those games. Those games are like FPSs on crack, where you're just running around bashing in the heads, and it's like the energy is so off the charts and wonderful and fluid.
Yeah.
But like, here's another take on it too. I think that Nintendo and Sega, with their platformers and their goofy, cute characters, seemed like, all right, time to put the toys away. It's time to become men and play Halo. And it's like, for a generation like you and me, who were kind of like on the forefront of that demographic, it kind of spoke to us, where it's like, I want to get with Cortana, hop in this warthog, and go mow down some freaking coveys. Like, let's do it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's why I loved Xbox, not just because of Halo, but they had a lot of first-person shooters before and after Halo that I thought were they were just amazing. I thought they're just so much fun. That was
what?
That was what made Xbox great to me, was the first-person shooter. I mean, golly, I don't know if I can recount all of the ones off the top of my head, but there was one I think it was just called Black. It was like a Black Ops military style game, and it was so fun. And there was one that I remember well. I can't remember the name of it. I think it was one of the Soldier of Fortune games, but it was like the first one they released on Xbox. And we took Tyler and I. We had our Xbox. It was, we went on a road trip to Maine with my family for a summer vacation in an RV, and we played we took the Xbox with us to play in the RV.
Dude,
we played it on our way up to Maine, and we were playing this Soldier of Fortune something game. It wasn't Black. It was before that. It was Soldier of Fortune Gold or something like that. First-person shooter, army style, blowing stuff up, really fun. But I remember it was another one of those games where, kind of like with Turok, but obviously much later, where like once you killed the bad guy, they didn't vanish. So we just start messing with the bodies and just like get our knife out and just start cutting off limbs and weird crap like that. It was just hilarious because it didn't look good. At the time, it looked amazing. But in comparison, I'm like, this looks terrible. But it was just so funny. Well, like all those first-person shooters were so funny.
They were revolutionary to us. Because we were
just mind-blowing entertainment.
Imagine someone like, a kid who grew up with like platformers like Sonic or Mario, and then it evolved to things like Zelda and Star Fox, and then you're playing Halo where you're running through hallways, blowing up like Flood. And there's something to be said about how like the evolution of games exponentially shot up. And I was lucky. I was a very blessed kid because I think around this time my parents were getting divorced. So
that sounds lucky.
Oh, I was.
That's why I was so lucky.
I was so lucky. Thanks, Mark and Janet. No, but I honestly bring this up to say, from a materialistic point of view, I had the Xbox, the GameCube, and the PS2. PS2 in 2000, and then because I think the console cycle lasted for a good long while during that time, and it wouldn't be until like 2006 or 7 for the next console cycle to arrive. So I got the Xbox when Halo arrived because I bought that out of my own money, and then I got the GameCube for Christmas because I wanted to play Pikmin. I love that game. I love Pikmin. I was all about that. Running around.
I never played it.
Oh, it's a fun puzzle-solving game with all these little soldiers following you around, and it's great. And I had to say that around that time, again, like PS2 and Xbox were building a reputation of being for like more the mature, like this is for men kind of thing. And then GameCube is like, oh, it's for kids. But in reality, it's like GameCube had Pikmin and Mario Sunshine. It still had some really wonderful, fun games. Like, and albeit even to this day, like, are there some darker games on Nintendo? Yeah. But like PlayStation and Xbox still kind of hold that, like, this is the more serious, gritty stuff. Though, of course, PC just laughs in everybody's face, where it's like, okay, like, if you want to play, come play PC. That's where you really go to play games. But I had GameCube. I had all three, so I got a taste for all three of them. So did you get all three of them as well?
Not at the same time, but I had played all of them. It's Xbox, PlayStation 2, and GameCube. I've owned them at least once in different intervals. And I was an Xbox man.
What
tried and true about Xbox, brother.
GameCube though, what made you want to buy that?
I think I bought the GameCube much later after it came out, because I can't remember how long into the GameCube's life came Zelda Twilight Princess or something, where you like could turn into a wolf.
Okay.
There's a Zelda game, I think, that came out for GameCube.
I thought that was Switch.
And
no, that was Wii. Nintendo Wii, I thought, did that.
There must have been one before it then. I swear there was. Because the only reason I can think I ever wanted a GameCube was to try out a Zelda game. Because honestly, like the Mario Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion, I had them. I tried them. I actually didn't like them that much. They just weren't really my bag. Yeah, I'm like, well, you kind of said it. Like, it's not that I was so much more a man, but it was just a different, like, I think GameCube games, I give them credit for like their creativity. Like, they're so creative. Like, man, they used common characters, Mario, Luigi, for instance, and a lot of their stuff, but that was like those were their characters. But like they were doing like the Mario Sunshine, very extremely creative and vibrant looking games. You know what I mean?
Like, vibrant, be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and Luigi's Mansion, like a very creative and fun game. Like, it's silly, ghosts and a vacuum and stuff like that. Like, I get it, and it was they were entertaining, and I really think that they took GameCube was GameCube was like for the dreamers. Like, people were like making games for GameCube that could potentially really appeal to everyone, like young or old. You could play GameCube without it being like above you or too much, too fast, too scary, too bloody, whatever.
Well, I personally think that it was around this console war that was the first real console war that was also like, I think Xbox Live existed for the Xbox One, but it was still very early phases of it. But
I never had Xbox Live for the first Xbox. I never had it.
Me neither, but I think it did exist. But it was also like, that was the first real console war that solidified, like, I know Sega did have a go at Nintendo being like, it's time to grow up and be real cool and edgy with Sega. But it was the Xbox and PlayStation that were more like, you're becoming a teenager. It's time to play games that are a bit more mature. And
like, I looked for that M rating for sure.
Oh yeah, did you ever get carded or sent away a Blockbuster for renting games that you weren't old enough to rent?
No, I think the only reason being that until I was able to drive, and was I only able to rent games on my own, my parents were always with me, and they're just kind of like, "Oh, you want that game? Okay." So
Cool.
they'd be renting it, you know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't card my parents. But
shoot, was Grand Theft Auto on the Xbox?
No, it wasn't.
That was PS2, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was a big deal. Grand Theft Auto 3,
a huge deal. Yeah.
How about the hell out of that?
Do you remember the original Grand Theft Autos that were like
Top
where
down?
you were? Yeah, it was so weird.
With cars that I never played that. I saw it on like Game Boys or whatever, but like, or video footage of it, but I never played it. When I saw it, I was like, that's the previous Grand Theft Autos? Jeez. Grand Theft Auto 3 is so much better.
Yeah, the Grand Theft Auto and Grand Theft Auto 2 are like real rough looking. I've played them. They're fun for what they are, but I mean, Grand Theft Auto 3 was like, that was what's, I feel like, if anything, if you had to say something saved PlayStation, it probably was that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think PlayStation needed saving. Xbox,
no, I don't think it did.
PlayStation had a massive arsenal with some very strong games. Xbox had a okay arsenal, but Halo was the ringer. Halo was the game where it's like, we are an exclusive to Xbox, and also we are very good. We are insanely good. And it's like, woof. I bought Xbox just to play Halo, play a game. And also, it would lead on to the next cycle. But before I get to that, I do want to ask you, out of the three consoles, Scott, which one was your favorite? Well, you said you were an Xbox man, I believe, but reiterated. Okay, why?
Yeah, I was an Xbox man. Well, I mean, like, I think the most basic part of it was like, I thought compared to the PS2, I'm talking about the PS2 here, I thought the Xbox had better graphics.
Okay.
And while it didn't have as many games per se, because like you said, the arsenal for PlayStation 2 was formidable at like, that's like the worst word you could call it. I mean, it was ridiculous. Like,
actually, I think it's the largest library of games ever was PS2.
Yeah, like it was insane. But again, I think PS2 had, I just found that when it came to PS2, it just didn't, the game types didn't speak to me as much. So you had a lot of flying games, which I already talked about how they just didn't, I wasn't a fan. And they had a ton of sports games, which not a fan, never cared. So I'm like, Xbox had all the games that I wanted, which was mostly military style games. Like, I want to be able to shoot stuff. I want to blow stuff up. I was very, very basic. But that's what I wanted when I was middle school or early high school, whatever. Like, I wanted to play Halo games. Like, that was it. Like, the graphics were so cool and so amazing. The cutscenes and pretty, and it was like pretty, and like, and the main thing, it was just they emphasized, in my mind, they emphasized strongly first-person shooters, and those are the games that I loved most.
So Laura and I are currently playing Halo Remastered on Steam. And
oh, cool.
What we're playing with an Xbox controllers was essentially like the Xbox experience in a way, except it's new, polished up. But as I'm playing through Halo 1, we're like 3 levels in. I'm like, man, like I'll switch back to the old visuals because you can go on and off with the new visuals to the old visuals, but it's just clicking a button. And I look at the old visuals, and I'm still like, man, this game mechanically is so tight and fun and great weapons, and it's fun and all, I keep saying fun, but I think the story and the universe and the world building was magnificent, and also the music. Like,
yeah, you're right.
Well, the trailer, I remember watching the commercial with the Halo stuff, and I'm like, kid me was like, oh my god, I'm forgetting a game that might tip the tables in favor of PS2. I just completely forgot. I'll get to it here in a second. But yeah, Halo and its music and its narrative and its story and its fighting and its mechanics is like, again, one of the most formidable games on Xbox. If it wasn't for Halo, I very much believe that Xbox would have just failed. It would have lost. It wouldn't have been able to survive. So yeah, Xbox and Halo. But the game I was going to bring up, I completely forgot about. A game that I played the heck out of, and I played not too long ago on a remastered version of it on the PS4. Kingdom Hearts. I love Kingdom Hearts, and then Final Fantasy X. How am I forgetting this stuff? Jeez.
See, Tyler got into the Final Fantasies a lot, and I had a lot of friends who were really into them, and I played a few, but that turn-based fighting style drove me nuts.
Not your speed? Why not?
The simple answer is that it wasn't fast enough.
Interesting.
I didn't like that. I just didn't care for that style of like, okay, I hit you, and now I have to let you hit me.
So when you play chess, you smack the board. You're like, I hate this turn-based nonsense.
No. I mean, it was okay, that's an unfair comparison. No, but what I'm saying is like in the world of video games, I'm like, if I were playing chess and checkers, my expectation is I take a turn, you take a turn. That's basis of the game. But what in the video game realm, I'm like, why would I stand here and let you attack me?
Yeah, right. Okay.
I just had a hard time dealing with that. The games were beautiful. They're really cool. I even enjoyed watching people play them because they were really, really neat, and the cutscenes were awesome, and the stories were really good for like the Final Fantasy games and stuff specifically.
Great visuals.
I didn't see as much of Kingdom Hearts as I saw of all those Final Fantasies.
Dude, I loved Kingdom Hearts. I loved it.
Tyler liked it a lot too. He was really into those turn-based games. Really into them.
Well, Kingdom Hearts technically is not turn-based, but it's the Square Enix, like, you running around beating up things.
That's right. It wasn't. That one actually was not. So I probably would have liked that one more, but I just ended up never playing it.
It's not everybody's cup of tea, and it's got some bugs that needed to hammer out. It got better apparently as the series went on. Also a lot more complicated, but still, I at least wanted to address those two games because I forgot about them, and I'm like, oh yeah. Damn, that makes things a bit more complicated. Because as of right now, GameCube is being pushed to third place. GameCube was fun. I loved Pikmin. It was great. But it was a quirky little system with some wonderful... Wind Waker was tremendously amazing. But like...
That was why we bought it, I think.
Wind Waker. There you go.
Wind Waker was probably why we bought it. I knew it was a Zelda game. I couldn't think of which one it was. Yeah, Wind Waker made me really dig on some GameCube for a while. But after that game, I lost interest.
Same. So for me, it was... And I'm sure there's some Nintendo fans. I'm sure there's all kinds of gaming fans out there being like, you idiots, what about this game? But like, we haven't mentioned Silent Hill, Resident Evil. We haven't mentioned a lot of big games.
Yeah.
But like, and forgive us, folks, you know, we're only human. But GameCube gets the bronze medal. And gosh, I guess if I have to decide between PlayStation and Xbox, I'm going to pick the one that shaped my next decision moving forward in the console war, and that was Xbox. I loved Halo so much, and I wanted to know what would happen next, and I wouldn't know until... no, technically... Halo 2. No, not technically. It is. I mean, it's technically, but it's also true. Halo 2 was on the Xbox. Halo 2 was amazing. Halo 2 was god tier. It was unbelievable how they raised the bar so high with the story, the characters, the fighting, the weapon. Dude, that was the first time I ever went to a midnight release. Was Halo 2. It was nuts.
Wow.
It was nuts.
Getting to dual wield guns was huge.
Yeah. And then the story got massive, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're learning so much. Dude, I was all about Halo 2. I worshiped that. I remember coming home from school and playing with my next door neighbor, Robert, and we like campaigned it up, and we're running through the streets of New Mombasa, blowing up Covenant. I'm like, this is the best. And I was all about it. So Halo 2 was like, Xbox. Xbox wins. I'm sorry. I fully acknowledge the arsenal, the amazingness of the PlayStation 2, but Xbox with Halo 1 and 2. And I admit I'm biased, but like it changed my world. It changed my perception of gaming, and I was never the same after that in a good way.
Absolutely. And then moving on past Xbox was Xbox 360, where Xbox 360 had some of the best games. I mean, continuing with Halo alone, more great Halo games came out for 360. On top of some other really good ones like, Red Dead Redemption.
Dude. So it's funny. We can actually bring up something that's pretty fascinating. Yeah. So,
real quick. So we are saying that Xbox, in our opinion, which we never really got into an actual versus or a debate.
We're in agreement.
Well, I guess we did argue it. We were in agreement the whole time. Sorry, everybody. But we got to rank it. Xbox Gold, PlayStation Silver, GameCube is bronze in our Console Wars episode here. PlayStation continues to be great, and it got better. But Xbox in its original state, Xbox versus PS2, Xbox, absolutely.
I think PS2 is a massively groundbreaking, and I had all three consoles at the same time. I never had to get rid of them.
Jeez.
Yeah, but again, that's the upside of the divorce right there. I got stuff.
Money.
Right. But moving on to the next console war, which was it got weird. It got really interesting. It seemed like Xbox and PlayStation were sizing each other up, saying, you are my main competition because we're very similar. While Nintendo said, screw this, we're going to do our own thing with the Switch. The Nintendo Switch was insanely successful. I think it's actually the most successful Nintendo console of all time. And
I've never played it, but let's leave it at the first war. We could do another episode for.
Let's do it. We'll do a part 2 because but the next console war there's a few other consoles. Plus, we can talk about PC stuff, and I want to make sure we mention our Duke Nukem story and our Saints.
Oh yes,
Duke Nukem.
I've been thinking about Duke Nukem already.
Cool.
But I'm like, let's get into that next because we need to cut this episode so I can go
be a father.
Go be a dad.
All right, Scott. Anything you want to say before we peace out?
Sorry for those of you who are weeping over PlayStation's unfortunate silver medal. Let it be known that currently I prefer the PlayStation 4 over the Xbox One. Never actually played the Xbox One. Not my cup of tea so far at all.
I'm with you.
But thank you guys for listening in on this one. We hope it wasn't let down for not really having any major debate, but Carver and I kind of grew up on the same terms. Like, we played the same stuff, loved a lot of the same things. I think our biggest disagreement was the fact that I didn't care for flying games. And you've witnessed the end of a friendship. But, you know, what's 17, 18 years of friendship, really?
Right, we don't need it. Star Fox 64 is more important to me. All right, folks. We will be... oh, my gosh. Cut this part out. No, leave it in. We will be back next weekend with... Actually, no, I'll be gone next weekend. But we will be back next episode.
Liar.
You're
lying.
We will be back next episode with part 2 of the console wars, and we will wrap it up. This won't be another fast food episode. We will make sure we wrap this one up.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up in 2 episodes. We'll try and hit all the highlights. We're probably going to talk about stuff that we may not even know that much about, but that's going to be the fun of it.
Let's do it. All right. See you, folks.
Bye, guys.